signs everywhere. Signs for your business and signs for your ride. SignBros is the place where we make your signs.
Hello.
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 All right. Good morning. We are the SignBroCast. We're all up in your business this morning. We have Chef Rulis in the house.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
From Rulis International Kitchen.
Rulis International Kitchen.
Awesome.
Very
Thank you
good.
for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're actually.
Mike.
Oh, go ahead. We're all
Okay.
excited to talk to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Food.
Carlos has been by to your spot a couple times. I unfortunately have not been there yet, but this guy's raving about it, man.
Great reviews, yeah.
Great reviews. He's put on about 10 pounds since he went. So.
But I want to say that, the reason we have some friends. I just moved from California 2 years ago. Had some friends that are moving to California. You met them that night.
Right.
And they actually, I'm sorry?
To El Paso.
To El Paso, yeah, coming to El Paso. And came on our radar through a friend of ours in California who loves watching all those shows and saw your episode where you came out with the Guy Fieri.
Right.
Is that, did I say his name correctly?
Yes.
And the name of the show again, I always have trouble with that.
Diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Yes, she saw it and knew they were coming, and she actually gave them money and says, you got to go take Carlos and Sharon and Lily out. So thanks to Mary Alice out in California for doing that. So
Thank you.
And I've been back again after that twice.
Right. Yes. We get a lot of out of town traffic because of Guy, and I think the coolest one yet is a couple from London.
Awesome.
And it was a busy night. They were sitting, at the bar, and I'm running around making sure that everybody has their food and everybody's ordered. And then I look at, I'm always looking at the time, and I noticed that they hadn't any food. And so I go back to the kitchen and I'm looking at the tickets, and I said, hey, I'm like, what's going on with the food on that table? And they said, no, we don't have a ticket. And then I go to the server and I said, did the people at 13 order? And the server was like, yeah, they got something in there. And I had already told the kitchen, I was like, I know they had something. I was like, so we just need to find that ticket. And so the server finds it. Thankfully, not much time had passed, and what they ordered was real quick to put together. And I just offered them some chips and make sure that they had some food, and they were really friendly, but I didn't catch the accent just then. And we got their food out and everything, and they were like so happy. They were really smiling the whole time. They were just kind of looking around, just kind of seeing the chaos that is, the kitchen on a busy Friday night. Yeah. And then finally, when everybody gets served, it's like, whew, that's like when you can finally take a breather, because it's been an hour of just go. And I finally got a chance to sit down and, not sit down, I just went to their table and asked them, how everything was. And then I heard their accent, and then that's when they told me that they saw the show in England.
Wow.
And they're super fans, obviously. This happened right around Christmas. So they had flown in from London to, I imagine, LA, but they were road tripping, eating at restaurants that Guy had been to on their way. And so they had been in Tucson, apparently, in the afternoon. And so they showed up to the restaurant for dinner.
Wow.
And that was their vacation. The ladies' parents live in Asheville, North Carolina, and so they were just crossing the U.S., eating at places that Triple D had been on.
Nice.
And I was like, man, that's just cool.
That's a vacation right there.
Oh, yeah.
I could get behind that.
Oh, yeah.
Road food trip, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, well, he inspired that. So when we got on the show, I've been a fan of the show, and I've been a fan of his since he actually had won the next Food Network star. And
Is that how he got started? Do you know? Or
oh
is
yeah,
that what
well I know his
made his name?
his whole story, but yeah, definitely the Food Network is what
Gotcha.
pushed him to the level where he's at right now. And he helps only small businesses. Like if you're a chain, he's not going to go to your spot. So he's really trying to help out the mom and pops, and he understands that that's where the flavor of a city, of a town, of a community, that's where it comes from. And so he's inspired road trippers all over the place. And as soon as I came out too, that was August of last year was when the episode aired. And another guy, this guy local, and he came and he said, yeah, he's like, can you sign my book? And I was like,
I'm not surprised.
And so he was, so what he did, one of his books features all of the diners that he had visited up until when it was printed. And this guy is a fan, and so he goes to the cities and he goes to the restaurants that he's been to and talks to the people, and he gets signatures. And he said, I know you're not in this book, but maybe you will be in a book one of these years. Wow. But, since you're local and you're in my town, can I get your signature? And
that's cool.
So I signed a paper form, and he put it there on his book. So
wow.
So yeah, so that was really cool too.
Yeah, I bet. Does that to get on a guy's radar? How does it work? Does somebody mention it to him, or does he go investigate, or do you contact him, or?
Well, it's a funny story too. He has a team. He has a team that scouts, wherever he's going, and apparently he picks his places. Like he'll pick the city, and the production guys were telling me that it's usually if he has something to do in the area, or
Kill two birds.
something like that. And apparently he's been to Juarez before, but he hasn't been. He came through here. But the blurb was so quick that I didn't get a chance to, because we were filming, so I didn't get a chance to really ask him what that was about. But anyhow, so he sends people, and his scouts go to different places, and they interview people, and my name came up through Dead Beach.
Nice.
And so the way it happened, I got a text, like it was 6 p.m, and dinner on a Friday, and so dinner was getting,
another busy
was
Friday
getting
night.
ready. We were filling up, and so I get this text from an unknown number, unknown area code, and it just said, "Hi, I'm with my name is I forgot her name right now, but I'm with Triple D, and I want to know if you want to be in the show." And so I see like that, and I was like, "Come on, man!"
Scam.
Yeah, here we go again.
Another scam.
And I did. I put my phone away, and I kept,
Thinking
and I
about it.
kept working. I didn't really think about it. Like I said, I kept working, and then like a couple of hours later, I got a text from my friend Justin, who's the general manager down there at Dead Beach. And he was like, "Hey, there was a lady from Triple D asking, like who she needed to talk to," and I obviously said that, that she had to talk to you, if she wants to get a feel for the food of El Paso, that's who she has to talk to. And I was like, "Oh, damn, it wasn't a joke."
Right on. That's awesome, man. Wow. That's awesome.
So once, so as soon as I read that, I was like, okay. So I contacted her, and we had our interview the next morning. So that was on a Saturday. And then she asked me for some pictures and stuff like that. And the interview went really well. And she told me, she said, "I don't pick the guests, but I can tell you that the interview went
Nice.
really well, because when it comes to talking food, as you will see."
I bet you business has gone up since the show.
Well, it did. We had our best month ever that August when it aired.
During.
Right. And so it's a pop that that was very helpful, because it happened right when they finally finished the Go 10 project, because our location, when they were fixing the highway, they basically blocked off all of the west side. to where I'm at. Now, a lot of people say I'm on the west side, but I tell people maybe lower west side. I don't consider UTEP the west side. I think it's more of it's still central, downtown central, yeah, lower west side if you must. But it cut off all of the west side and the upper valley, and so that was 30% of my business that just kind of, disappeared. And so when that when the show aired, they were finishing up the project, and so they opened up the freeway, and then we had that, and so that helped out a lot because, like I said, people now traveling, and we get a lot of that. We get a lot of people traveling that just get off the highway and they go to the restaurant because they saw us on Triple D.
Yeah.
And so I've met people from all over the country.
Nice.
So that part is, again, really, really cool. And then the thing that kind of sucked a little bit was that the shutdown happened, on the 20th. Saturday the 21st. But our show our show aired in March. It was like the 27th. And we missed the pop because every time they air it again, like that next day, we get like a huge pop.
Sure.
Yeah. And so they aired it 3 times while everybody was in quarantine.
Really?
And so we missed out. Yeah, we missed out on that. And
Teaser.
Yeah.
yeah, but it'll be on rotation. For 8 years total, so it'll be 7 more years. That'll
really?
be
Is
on
that
rotation.
part of the contract that you guys do? 8 years, huh? Wow.
Yeah, that's why they say the dish has got to be something that you're not gonna take off, because a lot of people wanted us to do the chiles en nogada. I said, well, yeah, but that's seasonal. We're doing that right now. So they tell you that, and they rerun it, and every time, like I said, every time there's a rerun, we get a pop. Mm-hmm.
And they highlight they don't highlight just all your menu, but just a certain dish, pretty much.
Well, I cooked 2 dishes with Guy, and he featured, I think it was a total of 8 or 10. I can't remember how many we cooked. But on the show, you'll see, a lot of the dishes going out the window. Industry term.
Yeah.
That's where we put the food. And so we had the chicken calabacitas, which is our best seller.
Heard about that one.
That's very good.
Yeah. That one's our best seller. Outside of the chiles en nogada during the season, like chiles en nogada right now make up for like 25% of my total sales.
Really?
Oh man, people, they start calling in August to make sure that we're gonna have them, and it's like we're not forgetting.
Now,
We know.
Describe that dish a little bit more in detail.
Okay, so the best, it's Mexico's national dish, and it actually is the feature of the current Chuco cooking show.
Yes.
So we're on that's episode 9.
Okay.
And that's up on YouTube.
Check it out, definitely.
Yeah, look for Rulis International. On YouTube, look for Chef Rulis, and then the videos will come up. But it's Mexico's national dish. It goes back to 1810, after Mexico gets independence from Spain. And the nuns are called Las Clarisas. It's the convent, and they made this dish to commemorate the new flag. So the red, white, and green. That was in 1810.
Wow.
In 1810, and Iturbide was basically the first ruler of Mexico. He also designed the flag. So he designed the flag, and so the chiles en nogada became a traditional dish for independence, which is September 16th. And it's grown in popularity over the years, but definitely we've served it every single year that we've been open.
Gotcha.
And that dish alone just has a huge fan following. And it's so that's the history of it. So what is it? It's a it's a poblano pepper, and then it's filled with a mixture of pork meat, beef. It's got
Nice.
We put apples and pears in it. The original dish had peaches. We were doing peaches when we still had them in season. So yeah, because we get a lot of fruit and vegetables locally from local growers, and so when they're in season, we use them for certain dishes, and then it has some dried fruits. We use raisins. It's got almonds. It's got pine nuts, and so the filling itself, if it wasn't for the pork and the beef, you would think it's Moroccan because it's Moroccan food. Northern African food uses a lot of like they use goat with dried fruits and nuts.
Wow.
But anyway, that's the Spanish. That's the more influence that came with the Spanish, back in the 1600s. So a lot of those traditions, you lose sight of where they came from. But Mexican food really is a fusion of so many different things. But anyway, back to the dish. And so you get all that stuff together. You put it in. You stuff this poblano pepper, and then you make a cream sauce with pecans and some sherry.
Wow.
And then you put that on top. And so the green chili, the white sauce, and then the pomegranate goes on top.
That's the green white bread.
You brought the sample dishes with you, right?
I should have.
I haven't seen Carlos smile so much on the podcast when you're describing that dish, man. I swear. I was gonna say, but last night I was going through some stuff and just checking out your stuff. I love how you're so active on social media, man. Like, you were talking about that. Was it the Chuco?
The Chuco Cooking Show.
Chuco Cooking Show. I watched like 3. If I wouldn't have been so tired, I probably would have watched more, man. I was blown away by the mushroom growers here in town.
Right. Yeah.
I had no idea, and had no idea how it even works. But if you guys have a chance to check out I was blown away by it.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the city, and the Chuco Cooking Show, that's what it's about. There's so much history here, over 600 years of culinary history, but a lot of people don't think about it on a day-to-day basis. But I just happen to have like a staycation during one of those times when the construction was just, we had slowed sales, and so we just did a staycation, and I just started thinking about food and seeing how all my friends that moved out of town, the number one thing that they miss about El Paso is the food.
Absolutely.
They're like, the food.
People are pretty good too, but the food's great.
Yes, but that's the number one thing. It's like, I miss the food, and so that got me thinking. It's like, well, what really is it, about our food?
We went back to the roots.
And going back to the roots, that's when I was like blown away by the history of some of this food, because I've been lucky enough to work with the Tigua Indians for like the last 8 years, and I've done several different things with them, and that has allowed me access to the elders. So I've been honored to have a couple of conversations with some of the elders, and one time we were doing a lunch for the elders, and I was like, well, what was the tribe eating like before the Spanish, like pre-Hispanic times? And then the first thing that one of them told me was like, oh, well, when we do our festival, it's like chile colorado is like the first thing.
Really?
And then that's exactly what I said. That was exactly my reaction, because I was like, I thought that was Mexican. But then it's like, no, it's not, because what is Mexican? Well, Mexicans are mestizos, and it's the, combining of Spanish and Native American, blood. And so that's where you get mestizo. And so from there, I said, well, our food is then mestizo. The correct term should be mestizo, because now when you say chile colorado, you obviously thought Mexican. That's why everybody has that reaction. But the truth is that is a Native American dish, made originally with whatever protein you could get. And so in this region was a lot of rabbit. You could get venison. The river was a mile wide back in the day. That's a lot of people Rio Grande, and they look at it, they're like, what, But
so grande.
back before it got dammed up at Elephant Butte, the river was a mile wide. It was marshland, and there was a forest, cottonwood forest and things like that. One of the episodes goes into that, actually, the one with Keystone Heritage Park, and that's a great little park to go hang out, support them as well, definitely.
Cool.
But anyway, so the river provided a lot of food, and I was talking with one of the elders, and he was telling me how his grandmother used to make turtle soup. And turtle soup is something that you hear that in Cajun country, down in Louisiana, and it's a thing down there. So when he said that, I was like, because I already knew that you could get crawfish. There's crawfish still in the canals, and and you can still get them
Here locally?
Yeah, yeah. But back before the dam, it was a ton, So
Turtles
so I
too,
touched.
assume.
Yeah. So the I've yet to go down. I still need to get the permissions to get down and do a show with the Tigua, because it's just so interesting, and that history, is something that we need to know. But just the Chuco Cooking Show just tells about all the different history, that's kind of been overtaken, by I don't want it to sound bad, but it's been overtaken by Mexico, and it's been a lot of those roots have been erased. So not like I said, like chiles colorados, you're like Mexican, no, Native American. Burritos, they're from Juarez, nope, they're Chinese. Flour tortillas, Mexican, nope, Chinese.
Chinese, really? I would think that'd be a little bit more Native American.
Nope.
Tortillas.
Well, corn tortillas. But flour tortillas are nothing more than Mandarin pancakes. And yeah, well, the recipe is like 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of hot water, and then you put those together. You form it into a ball. You let it rest, and then for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you start rolling them out. These pancakes were used to feed armies over 2,000 years ago. Wow. And these Chinese armies would basically cook them on their shields. Now, the shape of a shield is this way, but if you turn it over this way, which is Chinese. Disco, we say it's Mexican, but it's Chinese because it was a wok. And so the Chinese railroad workers got to El Paso in 1881, and they were basically living like nomads. It's like they were laying the railroad, and then they would stop, camp, and cook. And so they needed their food to be easy. And so somewhere down the line, they were probably next to Mexican farmers, and somewhere along the line they switched. They said, here you go, do this, do that. They probably saw them hammering out the train wheels into a wok so they could cook, And so, in Mexico, they say, oh, well, it's the tractor wheels, and they get hammered out to make the disco. So same thing, but they learned it. They more than likely learned it from watching the Chinese. And chiles toreados, I ask everybody, the Mexican, where did they get the soy sauce? And then that's like, that's right. And so it's like,
think about that one.
So Chuco Town, the Chuco, I haven't seen them yet. They're basically based around the history of the food, and you cook the food on the show, basically. Something like that.
the history of the food, yeah. So it's a two-part thing. So it's always a little story about the food,
Cool.
and then like a cooking segment, and then the recipe and stuff. I put on the bottom of the description when there is a recipe. Some things are pretty obvious, like when we did the hatch green chili. I put the
Favorite.
grind.
My favorite, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw the beginning of that one. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah,
I love that
so-
you actually went there and picked it. Yeah.
Yeah, we went out there and did that, and so it's fun because food. Once you start seeing it that way, you realize that food is very much fusion of all different things. Yeah, sure. So the history books currently tell you that the civilization started somewhere in the Middle East. And so it's assumed that cuisine also started, like in the Middle East. But back then, they didn't really know about Native Americans. And so Native Americans had their own cuisine, based on corn, squash, and beans. And that was the staple, like, all over the Americas, and then, of course, you had variations, when you get down into Peru, and in Peru you get potatoes, which a lot of people think are Irish, but they're not. They're from Peru. Tomatoes are Mexican, but if you think about Italian food without tomatoes, you'd be like, oh, they got to be Italian. But no, Italy got tomatoes in the 1600s. Prior to that, they didn't have tomatoes. And so many.
Wow.
Yeah. So much of the cuisine, the European cuisine, definitely is a mishmash of New World ingredients, Old World technique, but also the Silk Road. History also doesn't really touch on like Chinese civilization, the Asian civilization, because they had their own thing going. And we didn't really get familiar with the Chinese, till like the 1200s when Marco Polo, and actually his dad was the one that started the trading routes, and the Silk Road, was really Marco Polo and all the other traders that were merchants that were going up and down, getting different ingredients and things like that, and then and then in the in the 1500s is when they start coming over to this side of the world, and then they start to experiment with new ingredients, and they see new
Buffets and stuff.
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, that's where it evolves to.
Food and history. Who
Oh, I know. Jeez, well, I'm
learning,
blown away,
You
man.
want to make it more effective? Shit, a nice big bowl of something as you're talking about this. I'll learn even more.
Something new or something.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes,
Where
sir.
are you from? How'd you get into this whole thing? Tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, I was born in Chihuahua,
All right.
and but immediately, because my dad had expanded my grandfather's business. He was a lumberman, and he expanded it into Ecuador. Wow. And so when I was born, like 6 weeks after I was born, like we went to Ecuador, and so I was down there for like 6 years, I believe. Like my first 6 years were there. I think I did kindergarten while I was down there, and that's where the love of food kind of started.
At that young age?
I was probably 2-3 years old.
wow.
Yeah, because my dad would get like smoked oysters, sardines. He would get angulas, which you can't get that much anymore, and then cheeses and olives and things like that, and so those were my first snacks. I was snacking on those things, and also growing up in the early 70s down there, no chains, so no processed food. Everything was literally farm to market.
Nice.
And then I moved to Parral for a year, and I did first grade in Parral. And in Parral, my grandmother's brother, one of the brothers, she had many brothers, but he had a taco, like a taqueria. And we would go there, and I was probably around 6 when I had my first tacos de bistec, or when I remember having my first tacos de bistec with sangria señorial. I mean,
Yes.
and that was and
Love
that
at
was
first
it.
sight.
Yeah, no, that was it. And then we moved here to El Paso, and I started the second grade here. And
This is early 70s.
early 70s, mid 70s now. And we would go back to Parral to visit, my grandmother every vacation, every few days that we had available. So Thanksgiving, we'd be in Parral. Labor Day, Memorial Day, any, Martin Luther
weekend.
King, any 3-day weekend, we would go down there. And the must for me was like, we gotta go to see my Uncle Checha, and I need my taco fix. And so that's what really, kind of got me, that got the connection between food and feelings and emotions. Because I was eating good food, and I enjoyed eating, good food. But then, like that combination was like my first, like, actual food memory, emotion. Where I remembered everything. Where it like takes you back.
Oh, yeah.
And food does that. Like, you recreate a dish, or you drink a wine that you had in Europe, for example, and you drink it here. All you gotta do is close your eyes, and that memory, you're
Yes,
there.
it's amazing, yeah.
Because everything else,
Oh, yeah.
the flavor, everything that's going on in your brain, it's taking you back. So, so after that, I think my dad brought home a sushi making kit when I was 15, and I was eating sushi since I was probably 10 years old. And my dad loves it. And there was a place back, it was on Lee Trevino, and it was a Japanese owned restaurant. And by this time it was the early to mid 80s. And he would go there like 3 times a week, and he became friends with the sushi chef because he would go there so often. And then the sushi chef like gave him a recipe on the rice, like how to do the rice and get it sticky, and he felt, confident enough to go and buy all the stuff. And so he bought it, came home, and he said, all right, we're making sushi rolls.
And then mijo.
Sushi
And
it is.
so- yeah. And so that was the first thing that I learned how to make, like, on my own.
Wow.
That's
Well, like besides like an egg,
papas and all
yeah,
that, yeah.
things like that. But like, that was the first thing that I learned how to make when I was 15, and it's and it's been never
Passion.
looked back. It's been a passion since then, for sure. But the other passion actually that I developed early on, when I was 14, I bought my first investing book. On how to invest your money.
Oh.
And then I saw,
This is a whole other route, man. Right
you
on.
would be surprised. Well, you will be surprised. Because Wall Street was one of of my favorite movies, became one of my favorite movies. And actually, my degree, I have a degree in finance from UTEP.
Awesome.
And so, like, when I was getting my degree, I worked in a kitchen. My friend's parents owned a restaurant, and I started in the dish pit, and then moved up to prep chef. Prep cook, and then line cook, and then within a few months, I became kitchen manager, and so I worked that job while I finished my degree at UTEP, and then I started basically wealth management and private banking at Wells Fargo. I was there for over 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I got recruited by a Swiss bank, at the time, the largest Swiss bank in the world, the private bank in the world. They were the largest Swiss bank, obviously. And I worked for them for 4 years. Wow. And so, yeah, I have a very interesting perspective.
Yeah. Did you finance yourself to get your restaurant through the bank since you worked there? No.
No, I did. I did use some financing there, but really the business background is.
It helps a lot of it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, like the knowing what to do under all these different situations we've been put in, because we've been open over 12 years now. We opened in the middle of a recession, in 2008, and they thought I was crazy, but I've been watching markets for so long, and I'm like, this is getting the rebound.
Has to go
And
up.
so we opened in April, and my son was going to college, and he calls me, and he's like, Dad, are you still looking at the markets? And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, well, we're doing this project, at school, can you check these things for me? And so that was like early on. So that was like late August, early September of 2008. And I was looking at the charts, and then I was like, oh yeah. I was like, we hit bottom already. I was like, this is just going to go up from here. And it did, and it went up from there. And then because it's private banking, you basically work with like the top 1% of that 1%. And the vantage point from there is very interesting, to say the least.
Wow. But you graduated from Socorro, if I remember correctly, right?
No, Eastwood.
Eastwood. Oh, okay, sorry. Wait, the last 3 guests have been
Yeah,
Socorro.
the last
So
he was hoping for Socorro.
during high school, were you involved? Did they have home ec back then too, or did you do cooking?
No. Honestly,
That was too boring for him.
the friends.
Yeah, he was doing
friends.
sushi at 15 years old. Learned how to cook eggs and papas.
Slang
Oh
the
yeah,
tacos
yeah.
from your
No, high school was a lot of fun, and I guess I was a little more like Ferris Bueller.
Really?
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah. I threw some mean parties, and I was friends with everyone.
Cool.
Like everyone.
Did you cook?
For
Go
some
party tonight. There's gonna be a big old buffet.
yeah, no, for some of my friends, and
Those first dates must
and
have
for a
been
few
great.
exactly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
cooked,
man.
So that was growing up in El Paso was fun. A lot of fun for me, also because of what we were eating, and so El Paso has a huge Middle Eastern population, but again, they all look Mexican, and they're all Christian, and I think people assume Middle Eastern means that you're Muslim.
Yeah.
But these families own about 90% of the commercial property in El Paso, and so they're a very important part of the community, and their food has been around forever. And so, I got into Middle Eastern food, Mediterranean food early on. The Japanese, the reason that we have so much sushi in El Paso, but in Juarez more than in El Paso, is because the maquilas came in the early 80s, and the Japanese companies that came down sent all of the management, all of the supervisors, all of the lead engineers were all Japanese. And so they were working and living in Juarez. Some of them were living here in El Paso. But there was an influx because of the maquila industry, and that's why there's so much of it in Juarez, because the Japanese needed a place to eat, and so eventually, so Japanese chefs came out and opened restaurants, and then the people in Juarez, especially in Juarez, like loved it, and
Something different.
and they, and then depends on who you talk to. Like purists will say, "Oh, Juarez ruined sushi," and I'll say, "No." I was like, "It's not. It's not that they ruined it. It's just that they added their own flavor. Yeah, because now you get rolls with toreados in them and stuff like that, and I think that's great. I think that's evolution. I think that is Chuco cuisine. I use that term, cocina chuqueña, Chuco cuisine. I use it a lot, but that's really where it comes from. It's this food that evolved, these flavors that got together, because it's the people that we're living
culture.
and the cultures that we're living around, and eventually things get shared, and we come up with new dishes and new renditions of dishes, and I think it's important to know like the like the original recipe. Like before I mess with the recipe, I have to know the original recipe.
Oh, nice.
Because if you're just like, if you're winging it, it might work.
Sure.
But when you're looking at the recipe and you know the ingredients, then you can say, okay, this ingredient is used in this cuisine. So maybe I can interchange this spice, or maybe I can interchange.
And as a chef, I mean, is there a point where you feel personally that, I want to stay true to the original one, so therefore have you ever come across a dish like that, or do you feel like any dish is able to adapt? Or
It's all fair game.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have a question. Yeah. I've always wondered, like, how, let's say, menudo. I've always wondered how the original bowl of menudo tasted, or if it's been the same, or if it's kind of changed over the years. Yeah.
Okay, so it's original.
I know you know that answer.
Pull up a chair, boys. Pull up a chair.
I always ask everybody. I wonder how the original one.
Does you upset out there? No, I'm joking.
No, again, menudo is a fusion dish. It's a mestizo dish, because in Spain,
The corn.
because of the corn. Because in Spain, they were eating it already without the corn. They call them callos, I think, in Spanish, in Spain. And so when it came over here, when the dish came over here, you basically added chili and hominy, and the spice mix changed a little bit, but that's how it was. So the original one probably was a non-spicy, non-pozole,
non-soupy.
Well, it was
soupy.
soupy.
It was soupy.
It was
Okay.
soupy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it would just
It would just
The
be
stomach.
the stomach. Yeah.
Now I got a question. We're from northern New Mexico.
Okay.
Little past Albuquerque. That's where we're from.
Okay.
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Oh, all right.
A traditional plate for us over there is a stuffed sopapilla.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know about that. Over here, when we came over here, I remember when I was, middle school age, and we went to have lunch somewhere, and they gave us the sopapilla afterwards which they do
Right.
over there as well. But I was like, I could have used this. We grew up eating like with our tortilla and with our sopapilla.
Mm-hmm.
But over here, when we take people from here up that way and we introduce them to a stuffed sopapilla, like what is this?
Right.
And I'm curious as to why it hasn't came this way. Nobody here has a stuffed sopapilla, and it's delicious.
Right.
A stuffy. Yeah.
A stuffy.
That's that's interesting too, because the migration of the Tiguas, for example, they came down in 1690. So it was like the Pueblo Revolt, and they came down and settled in this area. because they had been up in that Albuquerque region since like 800. Wow, the year 800. So now the sopapilla itself, so some things came down with them. The sopapilla itself, I still haven't found I need to research it a little bit more. But if you guys ever go to New Orleans, have you guys been?
No, but I know where you're going.
Okay. Because I went for my 40th birthday, and I was like super excited, and I'm gonna go, and then everybody's like, "Oh, you're gonna go to New Orleans? That's awesome." They're like, "Oh, you got to go to this place, you got to go this place, and you got to go to Café du Monde." And then I'm like, "All right, cool." And everybody that I talked to would tell me that. And then I was talking with my friend Vic Polus, who's the owner of Zimvalle, the winery.
Okay.
And so I tell him, I was like, "Yeah, it's like I'm going to New Orleans for my 40th." And then he was like, "Has everybody told you?" And this was his answer. He was like, "Has everybody told you to go to Café du Monde?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he just laughed. He was like, "Go." He's like, "You should go."
Go.
And then I'm like, "Okay." So I go. I was with my son, and we, we're walking the streets of New Orleans, and we go we find this place, Café du Monde. Oddly enough, it was not very full, because every time I read about it, it said that this place was usually super full. And so it's important because there was no plates on the table. So while we were walking by, we didn't see, what this famous beignet was all about, right? You got to go to have chicory coffee and a beignet at Café du Monde. And so we get in line, and we're like, "Okay, we'll take, like half a dozen or whatever." They give it to you in a bag, and you shake it. And so then they shake it and everything. Then they put it on the dish. And then my son and I look at each other, and we're like, "Sopapillas?" I'm like, that's what this whole big deal is about? It's a sopapilla.
When you said they shake them, was it the sugar, the powdered sugar?
Yeah.
Oh. Do they have the little dipping sauces and stuff? Or?
No. Like, that's the difference. Like here, in El Paso, like we dip, we do honey.
Yeah.
Is the way we have them here. But, down in New Orleans, they have them there. And so it's like, that begs the question. It's like, so what is it? Well, the French are older, and so it is probably French. Mm-hmm. Now, the French have also been here since the 1600s. All of Europe came over, and we see a lot of French influence in the food that we eat. But again, it kind of gets glossed over, or people just don't care about the history. But I think the history is just super cool. So the French, so I think the French brought us the beignet. I haven't factually found a source, but the fact that they're the same and they taste the same.
It tastes the same and everything.
Everything's the same. It's just the topping.
Is it?
And so that
Is it a little? I've noticed that here they're a little flatter and a little like thicker.
Not as puffy.
Yeah, up north they're a little thinner and puffier.
and puffier.
Yeah.
Well, here I guess it just depends on who's making them, because the ones I've made are like what you described, like more more puffy. The thinner one sounds more like Indian fried bread.
That's where I was thinking, because there's a lot of natives up.
Right.
That's right.
And how big were they in New Orleans? The way they made them at Café du Monde.
The same here?
Same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're like the same. They're like this big, and it's the same thing. And so, again, that one is one that I still haven't like found the sources.
Origin.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know where some of the things come from, and some things are really easy to deduce. So, like, there's a French dish called cassoulet, and cassoulet is it's basically it sounds fancy because you're saying it in French,
Cassoulet.
but it's actually pork and beans. But
Sounds
there's-
much. Yeah, let's call it cassoulet.
so cassoulet. So as I'm making cassoulet for a dinner I did one year, I'm preparing for it, and I'm doing this, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I do not doubt one single bit that this is the way that frijoles charros came about. Because when I'm tasting the food, I'm like, besides the being white, on cassoulet, I was like, this tastes to me like frijoles charros, And then I find out that the word mariachi is actually comes from a French word, which is mariage. And mariage was the name given to a wedding band. And so that tradition, because the French were in Mexico too. And so the tradition of having the wedding band evolved, the mariage, the word became mariachi. So again, another French influence, on something that we swear to God, it's like Mexican, right? And it's okay to be proud Mexican. There's no doubt about it. But we do have a very, it is also a hodgepodge, but again, people, because we speak only Spanish now in Mexico, forget that the French were there too, but their influence is definitely there. And so it's, again, the roots of cuisine. That's why I say it should be called mestizo food, but I'm not going to win that argument.
And the way you say, especially like Mexican culture, like, no, this is Mexican. Do you think it's the same way with food? Is that reason maybe why some people, like Nathan said, the sopapilla or that dish, the stuff hasn't made its way yet, because that's New Mexican, keep it there type of thing? Or because I've always wondered about that. We're touching states, and I've always I thought I was gonna move to El Paso and be able to go to any restaurant and order stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny, but like there's New Mexican food, and most people, when you say New Mexican food, they're gonna think of the green chili.
Yeah.
They're gonna think of yellow cheese, and so the food is different because the makeup was also different. If like New Mexico was not part of the main railroad. Northern New Mexico, because obviously it comes through southern New Mexico. But the major point was El Paso, like El Paso del Norte, because we weren't divided back in the early 1600s and stuff like that. That came much later into the 1800s. But the migration was moving along the railroad, so it was going more east and west. And as you go up into Albuquerque and Taos and Las Vegas, northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, the food is different. But I think it is because they didn't have that major
Outside
cultural influence of all these other cultures, because that's the thing that most people, I think of El Paso as an international city because it's a border town between countries. But I feel that it's international because it has so much more. Because when you become the Pass of the North and then you become the Pass of the East and the West, this was a major hub.
Sure.
And so early 1900s, the 20s, the 30s, during Prohibition, this was a hot spot, for movie stars and things like that, because they could stay in Juarez and they could party all they wanted because there was no prohibition over there. And so you could do that. And El Paso was a very different place. I mean, a lot of people don't know that Liz Taylor lived here for a few months at the penthouse of the Plaza Hotel, which was Nikki Hilton's second high-rise hotel. You know, and she lived here during that time. And a lot of people, you know, if you go to Martino's still in Juarez, you'll see pictures of John Wayne and, you know, all these movie stars, you know, from back then.
Partying it up.
Partying it up. And, you know, and then the thing is that Prohibition lifted, but, you know, this is a fun city. It's a fun area. And so people kept coming back.
Nice.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Learned a lot of history. Learned a
Man,
lot
no
of
kidding, dude.
food
Blew
history.
my mind, man.
My mind's full, but my stomach's still empty, chef.
I know.
So I guess
We gotta make
what
some
Nate was
room.
asking is, if we go visit you at the restaurant, can you make us a stuffed sopaipilla?
There you go.
Chef Rulis
I
style.
can do
Chef
it.
Rulis style.
I
I
can do
stuffed
it. I can do it.
sopapilla stuffed with ground beef, beans,
Okay.
and then up on top, green chili sauce,
Smothered
red
with-
chile with pozole and rice on the side.
I'm having a brunch this Sunday, so that might end up in there.
Hey.
Don't you love it when people tell you how to cook, chef?
I know.
Well, you know, I haven't stuffed one with savory like you just suggested, but I did during when I came back from New Orleans, I did another beer dinner, and since I had been to Florida, I had been to several places that year, and so I did a regional thing. And for the dessert, I actually made a sopaipilla, but I stuffed it with baked apples
Oh,
and
nice.
you know, cinnamon, and then served it
Nice.
with ice cream.
That's dessert.
So yeah, so I have done it. And,
thanks for coming and putting a big smile on
Yeah,
Carlos's
definitely,
face, man. Look at this. I've
Well,
never
my
seen him
dish
so.
is pasta chihuahua. We haven't even talked about pasta chihuahua. I love the pasta chihuahua.
pasta chihuahua.
Yeah, usually when you go somewhere, you get pasta with meats or something. You always have to. It's always you have finished the meat and you're stuck with a bunch of pasta. And actually, you're very generous with the was it steak and the
Steak,
Chorizo.
the hot links.
yeah, the hot links were delicious. Yeah, I always run out of pasta. I'm like, I love it because I have meat afterwards.
And
just to hang on
it's
to.
made with chorizo. So the sauce is made with the chorizo,
Yes.
and then we put the hot links and some
Oh yeah, it's
steak on
delicious.
there.
I got it twice. I've actually met your place 3 times. You don't know it. The third time was our friends from California, Tom and Jeanette. She took her chicken calabacitas home with her because it was she got full, and then they left to California the next day. And I have the key to their house here, and she says, "Make yourself at home." So like 4 days later,
Straight to the fridge.
I found leftovers from Chef Ruli, and I was eating it. I loved it, man. So I got to eat there 3 times basically.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sure he wiped out their fridge too.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like to watch a lot of food shows, and I don't know how you do it in the
Oh,
kitchen.
gosh,
How
yeah.
stressful it gets. The shows that I've seen, I don't know how you guys just walk out of there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I'm
the
sure you have
thing
to have a
is-
good team.
My team always, and I always thank them first. Actually, I always thank my mother first, and then my team, because it really is, you know, the team that you know, that puts it out there, you know, day in, day out. You know, I still cook, which is rare for a chef. Most chefs don't get a chance to really cook on the line that much. But I still cook a couple days on the line, and if you have everything prepped and if you have everything organized, then it's fine. The one thing that will slow the kitchen down is just volume. You know, if we get 3 tickets and all those 3 tickets have 3 pizzas on them, then that's going to slow it down because we toss the dough by
Fresh
hand.
pizza.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So so we don't have them. You know, we have the dough balls like that, and so we have to, you know, stretch them out, roll them out, throw them in the air, all that good stuff, and then the oven can only fit so many pizzas.
Yeah.
You know, so if an order comes in and they ask for a bunch of hamburgers, for example, well, our grill can only handle so many hamburgers. And if we're already doing hamburgers and we get an order for lamb or for anything else on the grill, then we're stuck. And so that happens. But I've told my staff, the front of the house, I tell them, it's like, when we're slammed, you know this is going to happen.
Yes.
It's like, so you need to just let our customers know that it is probably going to take a little bit longer than usual. Like if they're used to coming here for lunch, it's definitely going to take longer than that. I was like, you just let them know that when the food comes out, it's going to be perfect and it's going to be worth the wait. Yeah. Because there's nothing, you can't rush the food, you can't cook it faster, you can't do anything. And if you're waiting already, I'm of the thinking that if you have to wait for your food, it better be perfect. Yeah. When you get it, you better say, "Oh hell yeah." It was worth it.
Nice and fresh.
I'm not gonna send out something crappy, and then just totally ruin it.
Yeah.
Awesome. But that's on those busy nights. That's where I come in and I talk to the tables and I just let them know. It's like, hey, this will. If Gordon Ramsay was back here, it would happen to him. Because it's
inevitable.
It's math. It's physics. It's like physical space. It's like you can only fit so much. And if you ask for your well done burger, well, guess what? If you're gonna, well, you can burn something, but we know that well done does not mean burnt. Well done does not mean hockey puck. But to do well done, to do well done right, it just takes a long time. Because otherwise that is what you're gonna get. So it is gonna take 12 to 15 minutes to properly cook a burger that you're gonna get well done, but still,
But I think in that situation, when me and wife go to a restaurant, as long as the staff is communicating, letting you know what's going on, talkative, that to me is the biggest thing. We can wait. It's not a big deal. Yeah. But when someone disappears for a long time, you have no idea what's going on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's frustrating.
No, and it's...
But your staff has been really excellent.
Yeah, well, that's, that's, again, my mother. She raised us, and my sisters, my manager, and then my son, who's been with me for like 8 or 9 years already.
He works with your son?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. And my niece, my oldest niece, works there. At one point, all my nieces worked there. But the 2 youngest ones actually graduated, and they're working in their fields. And the oldest one really loves the kitchen and serving. And so she's there too. So, it helps.
When Carlos says it's a good restaurant, he's really picky. Yeah, so
he's tasted them all.
Yeah. Last thing for me, Chef. Now with your online thing, you're still doing the cooking with Chef.
Yes.
Okay, let them know about that. But I think it's pretty neat, a chance to actually do a live cooking show. Well, via online, Facebook, whatever it is.
Zoom. We're putting them on Facebook. The event page is on Facebook. And you basically, it's $24.99. That gives you an ingredient bag, and the ingredient bag has a recipe card, a Zoom link, and then enough food to feed 4 people.
Wow, awesome!
And
$5.
Not bad. And then you log on to the Zoom at 6:00 on Wednesday. The next one is this Wednesday, the 3rd, and we cook live. It's a Zoom class.
Nice.
Wow.
So, so we're basically cooking this time around. This will be our 3rd one that I do for my customers. And so this one, the ingredients will all be prepped and ready to go. The first two classes, my idea at the beginning when we started doing this was to show people how you can cook from scratch. By literally taking the onion out of the bag, taking the carrot out of the bag, washing them, peeling them.
Gotcha.
So I was going through the whole process. But then I got some feedback, and to really make it easy, to make it like one of these, there's these food delivery programs that they send everything. So something like that. So now it's going to be something like that. Gotcha. So like the onions will be chopped, everything will be ready, and we're just really waiting for the pans to heat up, water to boil, and then we'll put everything together and make it like within half an hour.
And they actually go pick up the ingredients from you at the restaurant, right?
You pick them up at the restaurant the Tuesday before the event. So we pack up
Gotcha.
everything and you just show us your.
And it's Zoom, so they can talk to you back and forth, or is it just a one way?
I will open it up
Okay.
to questions.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Very good. Check
Because
it out.
I think that's really the thing. Because otherwise,
Great idea.
I could just record a video and give you a link to it.
Sure.
But this way,
A little more personal.
right? Well, and then people have questions, and sometimes when I'm telling these stories, people will have their stories, and they'll say, "Oh, you know what? My grandmother used to tell me this, is that," and it's like, "Oh, well, And so these stories that have been told from their ancestors, all of a sudden make sense, because now they're hearing somebody else say it,
Yeah.
and so that's always a fun moment.
Very cool. Well, check it out. Definitely check it out on Facebook.
sure.
And we'll put all the information on screen.
Yes,
I love how you support local farmers.
definitely. You have
Great.
to. You have to.
Great.
It's good for the environment. It's good for our economy, and it's good for your stomach.
Absolutely.
One last thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but we always challenge our business owners too. If somebody walks into your restaurant and mentions the broadcast that they saw it on,
Sure.
discount.
Yeah,
something.
let's,
Not to
we'll
put you on
do
the
it. We'll
spot,
do no, definitely. We'll do a 10%. We'll do a 10% discount if they mention that they saw us on SignBros for sure.
the broadcast.
Cool, man.
Yeah. Cool.
Like I know you. I feel like you wanted to say something else. No.
He was about to close off.
Oh,
When I rudely interrupted.
You're gonna go eat breakfast still?
He's not open yet.
Oh man. Thanks for joining us, Rulis.
No, thank you.
It's been an honor, man.
Thank
We
you
are the
guys.
SignBroCast. We're all up in your business. Don't forget to subscribe, and we're gonna go hit the breakfast hotspot. Thank you to Chef Ruli, and we are signing off.
Have a good day.
Time Rose is the place where we make a sign.